Hi, my name is David Bergvinson, and for the October 12th, 2021 edition of the World Weather Watcher, we're going to be looking at reports from the World Meteorological Organization, as well as a recent article from National Geographic on the impact of weather on loss of life, and also look into the movement of the rains across central part of Africa, what we call the Intertropical Conversion Zone, which brings in the rainy season for that part of the world. Yesterday, the National Geographic published a report on weather-related disasters, especially loss of life, and the fact that because technology has helped us track weather and provide advance warning to society, many deaths have been averted. That said, from 1970 to 2019, approximately 2 million people have lost their lives due to weather-related events. And the World Meteorological Organization publishes an atlas of mortality and economic losses from weather, climate, and water extremes, which shows that most of the loss of life has occurred in developing economies, with Ethiopia, Bangladesh, Sudan, and Mozambique being the four countries that have experienced the greatest loss of life due to weather. When we look at developing countries overall, we see that 91% of the global deaths have occurred in developing economies due to weather. And this is in part due to weaker weather infrastructure and warning systems, as well as infrastructure to be resilient to extreme weather events. When we look to the economic losses of weather, we see that most of the damage has occurred in developed economies, with the U.S. being the most impacted, especially for tropical storms that have impacted infrastructure, such as Tropical Storm Katrina being the most damaging. We see that developing economies have contributed about 38% of the total global economic loss, while developed countries have contributed about 59% of the total economic loss. And all of this points to the fact that we need better weather analytics to support the design of infrastructure to manage the increased weather variability that we're going to experience due to climate change over the coming decades. Fortunately, for emerging economies like Africa, AWARE offers approximately 370,000 virtual weather stations across Africa that can help us inform infrastructure investments, policy changes to reduce the risk posed by climate change to society, and also to track food security in real time. This is especially important for Africa given the rapid population growth that's anticipated over the coming decades compared to other parts of the world. When we look to precipitation anomalies over the last 30 days, we see that for Mexico, rainfall has been significantly higher than normal, while for Central America it has been lower than normal. And we see rainfall has been above normal for the central part of Africa, as well as for the northern part of China, while it's been lower than normal for the eastern part of China and throughout most of Southeast Asia. When we look to precipitation for the next 15 days, we see dry conditions will prevail for the eastern part of the United States, parts of South America, as well as for parts of Central Africa, especially the eastern part of Africa, Kenya and Somalia. When we look to Kazakhstan, we've seen drier than expected conditions extending all the way up into western Russia and across into Ukraine, and a little wetter than normal conditions for parts of Southeast Asia. Zooming into Kenya, we see for the next 7 days, the precipitation is below normal, meaning that the rains that are expected in mid-October have been delayed, and with it, delayed planting of smallholder farmer plots, and also the same is true for Somalia. Now, this could lead not just to a delay in planting, but also to a yield loss. When we look to the past 7 days, we see that for the eastern part of Kenya, the rains have been reasonably good, but the central part of Kenya and Somalia have been dry the last week. Maximum temperature the last 30 days has seen much warmer than normal conditions for the central part of Canada and the United States, warmer than normal for the southern part of Brazil, parts of South Africa, extending through the Middle East, and warmer than normal conditions for the eastern part of China, which have exacerbated the dry conditions there. We see cooler than normal conditions, though, for Kazakhstan, Russia, and the eastern part of Europe, such as Ukraine. The next 15 days, we see this large warming trend that is much warmer than normal from Alberta all the way across to the Maritimes for Canada, and from the northern part of central United States across over to the eastern seaboard. We see warmer than normal conditions for the northern part of Brazil the next 15 days. Same is true for the southern part of Africa, as well as warmer than normal for the central part of Russia and Kazakhstan. Cooler than normal conditions, though, for India, eastern China, and for Southeast Asia in the forecast. Precipitation in the next 15 days, we see that low or no precipitation in the southern part of the United States. This is a concern given the low levels of reservoirs in the southern United States. So states like California are restricting water access for farmers in that region. However, we do see rain in the western part of Oregon and California, which is good news for forest firefighters there that have been battling wildfires all summer. Good rains for the central part of Brazil, as well as central part of Africa, India, and across Southeast Asia. The ratio of precipitation over potential evapotranspiration is a powerful index that allows us to track water availability for rain-fed crops. We see the areas in green, such as Mexico, have sufficient moisture to support rain-fed agriculture, and this extends all the way down through to the northern part of South America. We also see good conditions here for West Africa all the way down into the central part of Africa the last 30 days. Same is true for India, good conditions, and Southeast Asia. Looking to the forecast, we see Mexico starting to dry up as the cropping season ends there and becomes marginal for rain-fed agriculture. However, the northern part of South America, conditions are still conducive for rain-fed agriculture. Same is true for parts of West Africa and also for Central Africa. Now, we're seeing the movement of the Intertropical Conversion Zone that we're going to talk about next, but we're actually able to track that movement with our weather analytics across Africa, given the density of weather stations that we have. We also see good growing conditions across Southeast Asia, as well as better growing conditions emerging as the cropping season ends in eastern China. Now, WatchER has taken the agroecological zones of FAO and consolidated them into 4 different zones: arid, marginal, suitable, and humid, based on long-term temperature and precipitation patterns, and then use that to compare to current weather conditions in order to assess whether areas under crop production are at risk of either moderate or extreme yield loss. So using this index at a glance, we can look at across the entire world to see how crop production has been affected by weather. And so we see that, for example, the northern part of the Corn Belt, a little drier than normal last 30 days as we enter into the harvest. We also see, though, good growing conditions across Mexico and into the northern part of South America, West Africa, all the way across into Central Africa, good conditions for agriculture. Keep in mind this green zone here that we're going to be looking at as we see the movement of the Intertropical Conversion Zone. We also see good conditions across India the last 30 days, as well as good conditions for Southeast Asia. When we look to the forecast using this dynamic agroecological index, we see very dry conditions the next 15 days for the eastern part of the United States. Mexico starting to become drier, especially the Yucatan Peninsula here. We see good conditions, though, for the Central American countries all the way through to the north part of South America. We see drying conditions emerging for the northern parts of West Africa, and also the movement of the Intertropical Conversion Zone south through Democratic Republic of Congo into the northern part of Angola. See good conditions the next 15 days for India, as well as Southeast Asia. And improved conditions for the eastern part of China as the cropping season ends there. Now, when we zoom into the central part of Africa, we can actually see for the last 30 days, the green zone here is the movement of the Intertropical Conversion Zone across DRC and into the southern parts of Africa. And in the forecast, we see further movement of this green zone across DRC, as well as movement into Angola. Now, in the case of Angola, the rains that are in the forecast are actually below what is expected, which could cause problems for farmers who are used to planting at this time of year, and the rains will not be sufficient for those crops to sustain germination. Now, when we go over and zoom into Kenya and Somalia, we see that for the past 7 days, Kenya and Somalia, for the central part of Kenya, have been below what has been expected as far as rainfall. The long-term normal is indicated by these gold lines here, and in the forecast there's very little rain, and this is a concern which is likely going to result in a delay in the planting season for the central part of Kenya and for Somalia. And this will impact on crop yield later on. If analytics like this are of interest to you, I invite you to go to our adapter platform at apps.aware.com, where you can start your weather analytics journey for free. Until next week, take care.